Welcome. In front of me I have the INFINIX Hot 20i, and today I'll go for unboxing along with a quick spec look of the phone. So before I actually get started, I'll just mention that this phone is at the lower end, so this is a budget version for selling for about 120 euros. So let's tone down our expectations to, I guess, what this device can do. But what I won't tone down is the kind of like a scam here. Or at least what I would consider one. So companies started doing this where they basically give you storage and also RAM. I mean, obviously all the phones have it, but here they have this misleading way of telling you that it has 7 gigs of RAM. What it actually does is have 3 gigs of RAM, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so I believe this is like 3 gigs, at least in this version. You can go even lower with 2 gigs of RAM, or all the way up to 6 actual gigs of RAM. And the reason I point that out is because here we don't actually have 7, because 4 of the 7 gigs is taken strictly from storage. So just a SSD or whatever it's using, like the actual flash storage that it has on here, which is not the same thing as RAM. Flash storage isn't nowhere near as fast as RAM. They do both tend to kind of work like storage, but it's completely different different speeds and also utilizations of it. So if you're relying on this device to have a lot of RAM, which 7 gigs would be a lot, it won't be anywhere near as fast as what you would actually expect from a device that actually has 7 gigs of RAM. And once you surpass that 3 gigs, you'll most likely feel the impact of it. Anyway, I just pop it open. So, and here we get obviously the phone. I did turn it on right now when I was taking off the cover, so just press the button, so there we go. Now inside here we also have a SIM eject tool, some paperwork, a plastic case, so this is actually plastic, as you can see. Then we get a charger, and this seems to be not the best charger, so it's a 10-watt charger. I'm gonna try to bring it up into camera view. Hello, camera, focus. Okay, so you can see it right here. Output 5 watts to amps. So it's a 10-watt charger. Now, one massive problem, and here that I'll already point out, is that this phone was released in 2022, and these engineers had the audacity to give you a micro USB. Like, come on, it's time to drop it. Now luckily there is a law that will basically prohibit this from happening, so companies cannot like give you this trash port anymore, because legally they won't be allowed to. So every phone starting from like 2023 or 2024, and I believe US and I believe Europe now as well, or Europe and some other place, will be literally forced into making their USB charging port be Type-C. Even if they don't like it, tough shit. So that is going to be a nice change, and obviously will bring these phones to be a little bit more versatile, because if you get this phone right now like kind of discharged and you need a quick power up somewhere, chances are if you go into some kind of store to ask someone to charge it up for you, they will have a Type-C port, because that's basically what most of the devices nowadays have. This one is still using the outdated, like beginning of, what is it, 2010 micro USB. So yeah, it's a little bit out there. But apart from the port, let's see what else we got here. So we have a 6.6 inch display. It's a 720p display, exactly 720 by 1612. IPS LCD with peak brightness of 500 nits. It has 83% screen to body ratio with 267 pixels per inch. So the display is pretty good. In terms of brightness, obviously it's not as bright as some, for instance, like Apple, where they peak out at like 2000 nits, but like I said, this is a budget device, and honestly, looking at it right now, it's pretty bright for the price, especially that you get to pay. It seems to be clear. Honestly, I would say that at a glance that I'm looking at right now, I don't really see that this is a 720p display, so it's also pretty decent. Honestly, looking up close, I still can't really tell you that this is a 720. It looks like 1080p, to be honest. I'm not sure if that isn't some kind of mistake that I'm reading right here. Yeah, nothing here. But yeah, like I said, to my naked eye, it looks like a 1080p display, to be completely honest, but obviously I am probably wrong. Anyway, let's move on. So, in terms of storage and RAM, like I mentioned at the beginning, there are several options. So, the very base model here, you get 64 gigs of storage with 2 gigs of RAM, and at the very highest one, you get 128 gigs of storage with 6 gigs of RAM. And basically, most of the other options are like 64, 3, 2, 4 gigs of RAM, and then 128 gigs as 4 and 6 gigs of RAM. And this version, like you've seen from the box, is the 64 and 3 gig version. So this is like the second lowest model. Now, outside of the storage that you have right here, which is the 64 or 128, I believe we can also expand it using SD card. And yes, we can. So you can pop in like half a terabyte in here and have way more storage than you actually paid for. So that's pretty nice. And moving on, this device is being powered by a MediaTek TM6762G or Helio G25 processor. And obviously you don't have any kind of 5G connectivity right here. That's why this device manages to be in a relatively like super budget price range. Which, just to clarify this, not having 5G is not such a bad thing. So if you're kind of on the fence and you're not sure if you want to pick up a phone with it or without it, chances are if you're looking specifically for budget devices, I would probably recommend to ditch the 5G altogether, because you will get to pay more for something that isn't necessarily as good as well it's being advertised, and you might get a little bit more value in the actual like quality of the device or what it offers for the same price, but not having the 5G. So, our last thing is the battery right here, and we have a pretty big 5000 mAh battery, so that's also pretty nice. And actually, I didn't mention anything about the cameras before, so let's just do that right now. So we have a 13 megapixel wide sensor, and I'm not exactly sure what a QVGA is, so probably that's a little bit of an oopsie on my part. So yeah, it says that basically for the main one is a 13 megapixel. Then at the front we have a 8 megapixel selfie. And that's about it. Now in terms of additional features right here, we do have a fingerprint sensor on the back, so right here. And we do have a headphone jack right here. And that's about all the worth mentioning things about the device. So there we go, that's the INFINIX Hot 20i. And if you found this very helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.